on Nova Legends podcast, I have Washington Post reporter Nicky Wolcott. We're going to wrap up the 2025 soccer season, an amazing season. He's going to tell us his thoughts on the season, but also let us know, how he made his selections with the final top 10 for teams, and also, of course, the All Met selections. Nicky, great to see you. Thanks for doing this.
Of course. Thanks for having me on, Julian.
Oh, of course, anytime. So, Nikki, first of all, about the season, amazing season. I do a lot of the Class Six boys. So for Herndon and Wakefield to be in the final, and then Herndon win was a great end to a season. But what about you? What were your general thoughts to the season? And this is your second year covering the soccer, but what did you think about the season generally?
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of had everything you could ask for, at least from my perspective, covering a variety of things from class six down to, class three Meridian winning on the boys' side. A lot of different stories. It was super interesting to follow and watch, obviously, once you got to the end of the year. Herndon and Wakefield was a matchup I don't think a lot of people expected in the state final, and just what both those teams did to just get there was pretty incredible. But I think on a lot of different sides, South County girls, them being able to get to the state final on the Class Six girls side was great. You had Meridian and on the boys side, Loudoun County girls and Independence girls on the girls side at the Class Four and Five level, just kind of having these dominant seasons. There's just a lot of different stuff to cover, a lot of different stuff to watch, and I think it kind of had everything you could ask for from a Northern Virginia perspective.
Yeah, no, it was great. Lots of surprises. We have two heavily favored teams on the boys' side, Riverside and McLean. Lots of Division One type players and Division Three players on the roster. Got upset before the final. McLean got upset really early, so we had some surprises, but lots of fireworks. Now, when you think about your top 10 teams. Obviously, that's going to be heavily affected by where the teams finish. So you're going to wait on that until after the finals. But the all Met teams, you probably have to go a little bit earlier. Tell us about the timing of your final rankings for the teams and also the players.
Yeah, so for rankings, I think we do our penultimate rankings pretty early in the postseason. I think it was late May, so like during the district, maybe after the district tournament or during the district tournament, was the penultimate ranking. So obviously a lot can change since then, and a lot did change, especially on the boys' side after that. So rankings aren't as big as a pool. Like I'm able to just kind of update my thoughts kind of throughout the pro season as it goes on, and then obviously, like you mentioned, state semifinals, state finals, a lot of that plays a big role in how teams do. A team like Wakefield, which was in the back half of the rankings or on the bubble, or I think might have been out of the rankings, honestly, at the end of the regular season. Obviously, what they accomplished, I think they were maybe four in our final rankings or somewhere in that region just because of the postseason run they had. So that's later, a lot later than all Mets, though. Obviously, the rankings are pretty easy to just kind of keep your eye on throughout the postseason, and just I have like a Google Doc that I'll just kind of go in and update after each kind of round my thoughts, and then the Sunday after state finals kind of go through and flesh all that out. But yeah, All Met is definitely a much larger pool. It's definitely something we're thinking about, a month before the season ends. We reach out to coaches. We have like a form we ask coaches to fill out alongside just getting, having our own opinions from going out and watching games or watching streams of games. And then obviously a lot of that comes down to just prepping yourself, heading into the final week of the season. We have a lot of, have basically like a huge short list and where I think players might go based on the stats and team performances so far during the season. And then after the end of the season, I think I had about 48 hours to turn everything in. So I drove back from Richmond, wrote the one or two, like did the last top 10, did the uh, we did a story on the Loudoun County girls and Meridian boys since we weren't able to go to those games in person. And then I didn't sleep much after that to finalize both the all Met teams just because obviously want to give my best to give everyone a full consideration, and I know how much that means for players, especially as someone who played. It wasn't in the Post coverage area, it was in the Frederick News Post coverage area, but I know how important that is. So I want to just give as much effort as we can into those. I'd say overall, like put well more, like well over a work week, maybe like 2 work weeks, like 40 to 80 hours easily into those selections, just over the course of the season, and then especially those last couple weeks, just trying to get everything, compile everything together.
Yeah. Well, when you compare your selections to the All-State teams, and the All-State teams are divided into six classifications.
Mm.
For your purposes, four are relevant, really. Three, four,
Yeah.
five, and six. And then three and four, there's not that many teams in this area. But I did a poll on Nova Soccer Source, and overwhelming amount of players and coaches felt your poll was more accurate than the All-State poll. That make you feel good?
I saw that. Yeah, no, I actually was pleased with that.
Yeah.
Especially because it's always hard. Obviously, the like you mentioned, the all-state teams are split up. But I don't think they do honorable mentions, so I think it's about an even number of players they might select. But no, I appreciate that. I hope people feel that way. It definitely is different just because you have. I know the all-state like voting process is different in terms of like players advancing from like district and regional voting and stuff like that. Um, Whereas we're not bound to any of those rules. But no, I felt pretty good about the teams this year. Obviously, it's always really really tough, but um, yeah, it definitely is different from the all-state teams just because you're not divided by a class, and sometimes that can make things harder in terms of like level of competition. How does that affect which team they're going on? But no, that was definitely something I was happy to see.
Yeah, it was by a big number, and I didn't know how that would go because I felt a lot of the folks that the coaches and the players themselves were actually on the site, so that could and the coaches are the ones that voted for the all
Mhm.
state
Yeah.
teams. So the fact that you won, I think it was like 62 to 38, so it wasn't even close. So that was pretty interesting. Did you get a lot of blowback from players and coaches after you posted the team? Did you hear from a lot of people?
This year not too much. It's always give or take, year to year. But not a ton. This season, all honestly, which usually take as a good sign. I don't know. Sometimes, you might want some more feedback just because maybe that means you're not as integrated in with the coaches and the beat as a whole. But no, I didn't hear much after this season selections, honestly.
No, that's good. It means you must be either close or everyone's being shy for once, which I doubt. Well, let's go to the top 10 for boys first. And number one was Herndon. Number two was Light Ridge. Number three was Riverside. Four was Wakefield. Five was Garfield. Six was Meridian, the Class Three champ from Falls Church. Number seven was Robinson, who won the Occoquan region. Number eight was Wakefield. Got to the final. Number nine was McLean, who was top rated amongst the top rated for most of the
Yeah.
year. And Alexandria City, who had lots of talent, was number 10. Now, how hard was it for you to pick Herndon as number one? Now, if I would have had your choice, I would have picked Herndon as well.
Mhm.
As you can tell, why I picked the coach and I picked the player. Otu Pasong is my player of the year. But Lightridge was a very good side, and I saw them live once against Riverside. So, and I know that if they played, that'd be a great game. But Herndon
100%.
would have been my selection. But why did you pick Herndon number one?
Yeah, I think Herndon just, I mean, for anyone to come out of that Liberty District, man, especially this year, like you looked at the Liberty District semifinals, and both of the teams that won that ended up in the state final. Both the teams that lost, McLean and Westfield, still finished in my top 10 and were two of the best teams throughout the regular season. Um, I just think the path that they had, um, their overall just record and just the run they went on kind of after their tough start. I kind of view the top 10, especially once you get to the end of the year, more as power rankings. And, I think end of the year is weighted a bit more. Obviously, when you compare it to Light Ridge, they played just as well at the end of the year as well. But for Herndon to just make the tweaks they did after starting 4-4, they only lost one game after that. And so it was definitely very close between that 1 and 2 slot, but I think for the reasons you kind of mentioned, I know you said you agreed. I just kind of leaned Herndon there as the Class Six champs, and then Light Ridge, obviously had just such an incredible season. Were in my rankings. I think once I got to the halfway point of the season, it was pretty obvious they were pretty good, and I think a lot of people didn't really know just the level they were kind of at, and they kind of proved that in that run to the class five title at the end of the year. So they were definitely worthy of consideration, and it was a tough choice between them and Herndon at 1 and 2. But I gave the slight lean to Herndon just because, especially their performance in the state final as well. A day after that state semifinal went to Penn's, was just really comprehensive, and it just kind of showed their class, and they definitely deserved it.
Well, one thing that stands out to me is McLean all the way down at 9. Now,
Mhm.
this was tough for me as well because I like the McLean kids a lot, know them really well. They're not the kind of kids that have a lot of mercy on other teams, so I don't think necessarily we owe them a whole lot of mercy. Uh, but they were such a great team, and they lose to Wakefield on just an unbelievable night. The weather
Yeah.
was incredible. I mean, they had a red card. I mean, if and then they had a kid on a red card from the previous game,
Mhm.
Will Saxon. Everything had to go wrong for them to win, but you can't take that away from Wakefield. Wakefield was able to deliver and turn around a 5-0 deficit in the regular season game. So that was one that was very difficult. I'm not saying I disagree with you because
Mhm.
they lost early. But was that tough for you to put them number 9? What was your thought process on that?
Yeah, yeah. I think the kind of power rankings idea and just like the results at the end of the season obviously mattering so much is just what kind of played into that because I don't think a lot of people would deny that they were probably like a top five team in the area in terms of talent at the very least. But yeah, when you look at the teams that finished above them, Herndon winning their first state title in a lot of years, Light Ridge winning their first ever state title. Riverside having the season they had, obviously it ended in an unfortunate way, but they easily could have gotten to the state final as well. They lose to Wakefield, and just the run that Wakefield went on, like I think they just deserve to be represented in these final rankings with the top five selection. And then all the teams above that, Meridian wins a state title. Garfield gets back to a state semifinal, and we're literally like 30 seconds away from their first state final in about 20 years. Um, Robinson getting back to the state tournament for the first time in something like 13 years. And then, obviously, Westfield, yeah, I mean, they could have both been 8 or 9. I think Westfield won the first game of the regular season, which was really, um, I guess like I gave them the nod on a head-to-head matchup, even though the beginning of the season doesn't matter as much as the end. But I think that was kind of the rationale for putting them at 9. But like you mentioned, like if anyone disagreed, like I wouldn't be opposed to hearing them out. I think it's pretty obvious that they were one of the most talented teams in the area, and you know. Sometimes results like that happen and it's rough, but these final rankings are the end of the season has a lot of weight in them.
Yeah, I mean, it's very difficult. I mean, Wakefield deserves everything they got. One thing about Wakefield, you have to remember that they got that was a regional semi,
Yes.
and then they played 4 more games after. Teams continue to develop in the postseason.
Mhm.
Wakefield, when I saw them in the state semis and finals, they were so much better team than I saw them early in the year because you continue to those high level games and your players are playing together. The chemistry improves, the players improve because of the moment. So and Garfield was incredible. I mean, I think talent wise, I would put Garfield with Riverside and McLean as the most talented teams I saw all year.
Mhm.
So I think Garfield, deserves every bit of number 5. If you're not going to rate them higher, and I can't blame you for what you did. Well, let's stay with the boys first,
Mhm.
and do the top. Let's go to the all Met teams on the boys, and then we'll do the girls top 10, and then the girls top, all Met. So for the boys, my guess is this is one of your hardest selections that you had to make,
Yes.
because the player that you chose is phenomenal, and he definitely would have been one of mine as well, if not the one. Uh, but John Balke, midfielder for Riverside, unbelievable team, unbelievable player, great kid. Going to George, I think I said going to George Mason next year. Why'd you choose John as your player? And was it as difficult as I said it was?
Yes, I honestly I think this was probably the toughest all-met selection I've probably ever had to make, and that's like of or all-met play of the year selection I had to make, and that's of about like 10 so far, I think, over the last couple of years, maybe eight. In the basketball and football ones are obviously a team effort, but no, this was about as hard as it got, I think. John, it would Riverside was our number one team for the entire season until the last rankings. And he was really the engine of that team. That's not to take away the talent that the rest of that team had because obviously they had a ton of great players as well. But I think John was someone that was very very worthy. Obviously, had great stats, but even stats that probably don't even show how important he was just in the role he kind of played, and their defense also didn't even give up. I think they gave up like 4 goals all season or something. So. He was someone that was very worthy. There were a lot of players that were definitely worthy of play of the year. The first team this year, especially, I think was really stacked on the boys' side. Honestly, the same with the girls as well. But there were a lot of players who definitely had player of the year shots.
Yeah, yeah. John's a phenomenal player, so I think he's going to have a great career at George Mason. There were two players that I felt that were underrated on the coaches poll that you elevated. I felt properly to the first team. That was O2 Basong. No win in a row. He should have been second team All State. I mean,
Yeah.
that was one of the most for him and for Manny not even to make it. I'm not even going to get it. We're not even going to start there. But
Yeah.
but one of them had to be on the first team, and then 0-2 as the senior I would have been my selection as well. But I wouldn't have argued Manny. Also, Ricky Perez is a player that I thought was underrated on some of them. I don't think Ricky made first team All State, and I thought he
I
was
think he was
rightly on
second.
your first
Yeah.
team. So how did you feel about those two selections? Did you agree with me they needed to be on? Obviously, you agree with me, but talk a little bit about those two selections.
Yeah, yeah. I think both were, some of the most important players on teams that got to the state final. And I think, when you look at the amount of talent in the area, there's obviously a lot of kids vying for first team spots, but you have to go on performance throughout the season and the how much they contributed to their team's performance throughout the season. I think O2, who I think I wrote in the a liner for him. Yeah, he scored or assisted in 12 of their last 13 games when they were really hitting their stride, and that's what got them to the state championship. Was definitely someone that deserved to be honored. With the first team spot, I know you picked him as your player of the year for 6C and 6D, I believe, which I fully agreed with that selection as well. And then Ricky, that Wakefield team, like you mentioned, was the team that developed throughout the season. But their defense throughout the year got them through some really important moments, and I think I was talking to their coach Eddie heading into the state tournament, or maybe heading into the state semifinals, and he said, like Ricky's kind of our backbone, like those center backs who can kind of play out of the back and on those teams just provide such a solid foundation are so important, and so. I think both of them, especially seeing how far their teams got and how big of a role they played in that, were definitely deserving of first team spots. And yeah, they didn't get them on All State, but I was glad we were able to honor them on All Met.
Absolutely. Also, Cameron Farrell, great goalie. I believe he's playing for Tech next year.
Mhm.
Riverside goalie. Um, definitely belongs. Is it tough to evaluate defenders and goalies? You had some goalies on the honorable mention and on the second team for girls and boys that I wouldn't know because I didn't see those games. They were Loudoun County players, so it's tough. It's
Mhm.
easy when you have a lot of goals and assists because you can say, well, he got 30.
Yeah.
Like Lily, her
Mhm.
stats are so overwhelming. Even though I didn't see her play, it's easy to see why she'd be player of the year. Is it tough? And Con Keskin is a guy that's a tremendous player, and he went to Robinson. Obviously, saw Braden play, a great player as well. Is it hard to rate goalkeepers and defenders?
It definitely can be. I think that's why also I try to go like further than stats on the offensive and midfield side. Sometimes it's hard to. But like when you're making a midfield selection, like this might not always be the case, but it's like, do you want to have four midfielders who are all like technically tens on the first team and not really honor like a six, like who plays such a crucial role on the team? Like that's what makes it really hard during the all Met selections. And so not having that with defenders and goalkeepers can be really tough. I felt really happy with the selections I made on the first team and kind of throughout the list. In that respect, as someone who was a defender myself, I know like how important it is and how hard it can kind of be to get those decisions right. But that's why we reach out to so many coaches and take all that feedback into account, and also just try to watch as many games as you can. Obviously, see someone like Braden, who was probably easily one of the best players on that Light Ridge team, to captain that team to a state title, like that's a pretty easy selection. But once you get on the list, it gets a lot harder. So it definitely can be harder, but that just means you kind of have to put in more work and just feel more confident in those selections. So that's definitely, I think that's something that's definitely true. But as someone who was a defender, definitely try to take that into account.
Yeah, and I think it was important to have a light ridge player in the first team, even though Braden deserves it.
Mhm.
Uh, so let's talk about David Sesnick, the light. He was coach of the year.
Mhm.
Now, I'm sure you probably considered the Meridian coach, Nathan Grenier. I hope
Mhm.
I pronounced your name right, Coach. Um, who are some of your finalists, if you don't mind, for Coach of the Year?
Mhm.
And obviously, Lightridge winning the first state sports title in school history. And I don't know if you heard the feedback the players gave me when I interviewed them. Sounds like a fantastic guy and coach as well. Anyway, just talk about your selection process for coach.
Yeah, no. I mean, Nathan from Meridian and Jordan from Herndon were definitely in the mix among other coaches as well. Eddie obviously at Wakefield, just for what they accomplished this year. We're all kind of in my mind, but yeah, David with what Lightridge has just accomplished over the last couple of years. They opened. I think he was the JV head coach their first year, and then his first year in charge when some of these guys were freshmen and a lot of them were, a lot of the guys who are still on varsity now were on the team their freshman year. I think they won 2 games. And so to have this coach in one cycle of in one generation of players really kind of lead that program from basically the very beginning, and 2 wins to a state title, was just pretty incredible. That team, also that team, like I don't think they were on many people's radars going into this year. And I mean, they were in my rankings from pretty relatively early in the season, maybe like the halfway point. But like you mentioned, like everyone just kind of Riverside is kind of a brand name now. Everyone kind of knows just how talented they were. But obviously, Lightridge kind of showed that they were every bit as talented, every bit as capable to win a state title. And so I think just that culmination of just the last couple years and what it took to get to this point, what was really what played a big role in naming David.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Coach Steffi, my coach of the year,
Mhm.
and we'll get to that in a little bit later. One thing that does stand out um, is the relatively few number of underclassmen in your teams. In the top two teams, there was Braden from Lightridge, Mosiatis, Brian Wudo from Loudoun County, and Manny
Mhm.
McQuinnett from Herndon. There were some players in the honorable mention, but really not that many players on honorable mention. Maybe four or five.
Mhm.
This was a generational class. This could
Yeah.
be a brand new bunch that we're gonna have to look at next year.
100%. Yeah, I feel like I'm someone who is usually I'm pretty willing to give underclassmen their flowers, if they had great performances. I think like a season or two ago, I think on the girls' side in Maryland, there were like a lot of underclassmen, and I got a question about it, and I was just like, just trying to award the best players throughout the season, like, but I think what you said is true. I think there was just a lot of great seniors this year. I think which it was like one of the district or region teams. Maybe it was Patriot District or maybe it was 6C. It was like almost all seniors, and I don't think like sometimes
60,
like yeah, it was
six.
6C. Yeah, I think it
Yeah,
was like it was all of them or like all but 2 players or something. And sometimes you think, oh well, maybe like the coaches are just trying to like get their seniors some love, whatever. But I think it was generally true that there were just a lot of great seniors this year. So no, it was a really great class. There was a lot of high quality soccer kind of throughout the region this year. And but it'll be good to see some new faces next year, and a lot of players will have the opportunity to get some more playing time and make their own mark.
yeah. I definitely think it was a generational class. Class of 25. I've been following it high school soccer since my son was a junior, so I think that's 21.
Mhm.
This is by far the most talent I've ever seen. I remember Chandler and I were at the Lewis Robinson game, and his senior year, they beat Lewis, but that Lewis team got to the state quarterfinals. And I asked him, um, was this Lewis team as good as the Lewis team that he played against? He said, Dad, this Lewis team is so much better than the Lewis team I played against. And that team got to the state
Yeah.
quarters. It was the amount of talent was unbelievable. It was just unworldly, unworldly the amount of talent there was. Real quickly, do you like the fact that, and at least from your benefit, that Virginia plays high school in the spring and it spreads it out so you can focus on Maryland in DC in the fall and then Virginia in the spring? Or do you wish they were all together in the fall?
It does give me like more time to cover it. So I guess from my perspective, I do like it. I grew up playing in Maryland, so we played in the fall. So I would be interested to see how people feel about that in general, just because it is kind of interesting to me. And a lot of our club games, or a lot of the teams like in our club league were from Virginia, so it was always hard to like schedule stuff. A lot of our showcases were like in the winter between both of our high school seasons to try to like get as many games as in as we could. Um, but from covering it, it just gives me more time for each. So I do kind of enjoy it from that perspective.
Yeah, I did a poll on the group, and overwhelmingly, the players and coaches want to keep it in the spring.
Oh wow. Yeah.
If you ask for folks who run clubs, they want it in the fall because what happens is you have kids who go to private school in Virginia, and they have really nothing to do in
Yeah.
the spring because all the kids are playing high school, and then in the fall they're overburdened with all the practices and the
Yeah.
stuff for high school. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Let's go to the girls now. Um, and let's talk about the top 10 teams. Um, I don't think because South County lost in the finals, I don't think the number one team was controversial at all. But let's go to the top 10. Number one was Independence. Number two was South County. Number three was Loudoun County, the Class 4 champion in Virginia. Um, then number three was Loudoun County. Number four was Freedom South Riding, who had won the state the year before, lost to Deep Run, I believe, in the quarterfinals, right? Or did they lose
Oh
to
no, they lost to South County
South
in the
County? Lost to South County in the semifinals.
Mhm.
That's right. That was a big game.
Mhm.
Freedom had a very tough draw in the regional final. Great season for Coach Campbell again. Yorktown got number five, got to the state semifinals. WNL lost in the state quarters, I believe, got in number six. Very talented Madison team that had problems with their roster with all the national team commitments and the other commitments. Got number seven. Colgan, who lost to Freedom, was number eight. Great, a really talented Colgan team. Robinson was number nine, and then Battlefield, very strong side, was number 10. Um, I don't think Indy was a very hard choice given their undefeated record, their a margin of victory in every game. Great coach, Coach Veerkorn. But why did you choose Independence as your number one team?
Yeah, I think obviously it's never easy to go undefeated, but just what they were able to do kind of throughout the season. Obviously from last year having no seniors to this year's senior class really taking on even more of a leadership role. I listened to the podcast with Anne. I think she was talking about that with you as well. Just how this group kind of matured and how even coming into the season, they were my wire to wire number one team. They were number one to start the season. A lot of coaches had a lot of great things to say about them kind of throughout the year. And kind of said going into the year that she thought this group was really special and there's just a lot of great talented players and a lot of times coaches sometimes hold that closer to their chest. They're almost nervous to say that, but she was right, obviously. Like they just had a ton of great players. They found a great chemistry together. I went out and saw one of the games during the season. I was able to watch them on stream a couple of times, and then my coworker Eli covered their semifinal and final games, and they were just very, very worthy number one team throughout the year, and then they proved it at the end, especially in that state championship game. Recovering from giving up a 2-0 lead and winning in overtime. Um, with this the group they had that was I mean we'll get to all teams in a second, but they were very well represented just because of the amount of important players they had. So yeah, that selection wasn't so tough after the season they had.
Yeah, the number of Division One players they have is ridiculous. And I interviewed Lily, and she was like, "Oh, the team 2 years ago was better." I'm like, "Oh, I would have liked to have seen that team because I can't imagine a team being more stacked than this team. I mean, just unbelievable the players." South County was an interesting team. I saw them live. They play kind of sleepy. It's almost like they're just kind of doing their thing. They're just playing. They don't really press like crazily, and all of a sudden, bam, bam, they score on you and they win. It's a very interesting team. What did you think about South County?
Yeah, I think they really kind of just kind of grew throughout the season. Obviously, like you mentioned, just a very good defensive team that just didn't put themselves in bad situations throughout the year. And I think that was really to their advantage once you got to like postseason play and district play, just with the amount of great teams in that region and district. They just didn't find themselves in any bad situations. They always gave themselves a chance. And they ended up on a 14 game winning streak heading into the state final. And then, they fell they conceded early against a like very good deep run team. Obviously from closer down to Richmond. But they stayed in it the entire time and Deep Run had beaten some local teams before that. Um but I think a little bit more. I think they won their state quarter 3-0 against Battlefield and the semis 2-0 over Yorktown. And so South County just throughout the season kind of showed and also with the situation with Daryl coming in so close to the beginning of the season, obviously was already very familiar with the group being on staff, but it was just really impressive what they were able to accomplish, especially down the stretch of the season, just going on a 14 game unbeaten run into a Class 6 final and really holding their own against that deep run team was very impressive.
Yeah, yeah. What a great team. Great coach. Uh, Coach Springer in his first year got the job 2 weeks before the season. Awesome. I did not see Loudoun County this year. I know Coach Kieran's daughter is the star player for Loudoun County. Tell us a little bit about Loudoun County girls.
Yeah, they were really impressive. When I went to see their state quarterfinal in person, and they won that game 5-2. They were in control basically the entire game. They scored three pretty quick goals, I think, about halfway through the first half, and just kind of rode it out from there. But no, they have. I mean, that team. It was Coach Chelsea Abuba's second season in charge there. They had five freshmen who ended up earning starting spots throughout the season, and they still found a way to go undefeated. Like you mentioned, Callie Harris, I believe, is only a sophomore as well. So they had some important senior leaders, but they had a lot of players who were just stepping into roles, and all went pretty seamlessly for them. Class 4 is always tough, but the Loudoun County teams have had a lot of success over the last couple years. I think there's been a Loudoun County champion like each of the last. I want to say 8 years. It might be 6 or 7, but I want to say 8 years. And in a lot of cases, it's been like different teams each year. Obviously, Champ won it last year. I Woodgrove had won somewhat recently, I think 2018 or 2019, and got back to a final this year, obviously. But no, Loudoun County was really impressive when I saw them in person. A lot of firepower attacking wise. They have Emily Horst, who was one of the senior leaders. Um, and then a lot of great freshmen on both the offensive and defensive side that just kind of allowed them to control a lot of games throughout the season and get to the state final.
Yeah. And I hope Kelly Harris returns and has another dominant season next year. Well, most of your rankings make total sense. I don't. I would have done it the same way if I was as smart as you are about soccer. But I have to say there are two teams that you put them where they deserve to be. But I can't help but feel they're such great teams that could have very easily been state champions themselves, but they just lost. Madison and Colgan.
Mhm.
They have a lot of really good players. Colgan lost to Freedom, and Freedom beat a lot of good teams to get where they are, as I mentioned before. And Madison, with the great Daphne Vanderveel, And they have a Sydney Lacey. They have a couple other. I think I said her name right. They have a couple other great, really good young players.
Yeah.
They're just incredibly talented team.
100%. Yeah. It was similar thing to McLean on the boys side where you know, the number nine team in the rankings could have won a state final, and I wouldn't have been surprised. And honestly, I think it's the same way with both of those teams, just talent wise. Yeah, the Colgan Freedom, the fact that they drew each other in the regional quarterfinal was just absurd. That kind of sucks, just because the 6B is so weird with because you have three districts instead of two, I
Yeah.
believe, and sometimes I think like. There's something with the seeding where I think the regular season champion gets the number one seed regardless of what happens in the district tournament, or vice versa, where there was just some weird thing where like it just sucks that those two teams had to match up against each other so early in
Yeah.
the region tournament. Um,
And that was a rematch of the state final from 2024.
Exactly, like
Yeah.
literally just last year, and a lot and both those teams like returned a decent amount of players from that team. They in no way were they the exact same teams, but they both had a lot of great players coming back. So yeah, it was unfortunate that they matched up against each other so early, and like you mentioned, Madison, I think they were missing someone in that. I think regional semifinal game, I believe as well, which was unfortunate. But no, I mean, like the list this year on the I mean honestly the same on the boys side too, but it kind of wrote itself just because like okay, well, the top 10 most talented teams in the area are all really great. Like Battlefield is number 10 and they still got to the state quarterfinal. So
Yeah. Well, let's go to the All Met team for the girls. Um, that probably was a Lily had unbelievable stats. She's a great player, and they won a state championship, so that makes sense. But you had Anna Chow. Um, Team lost kind of early though, but her stats are unbelievable, and she's a great player. And you had Reese Montgomery. Um, you know, Chase Rooney. If they would have gone further, would have been a threat, but they lost kind of early. So, what was your thought process in making Lily the Player of the Year, which nobody would argue with you?
yeah, it was definitely like slightly easier than the boys side at the very least, but like there's still a ton of players who would have been worthy player of the years. Um, and I think you kind of mentioned a lot of them. Like Anna was someone who was like you know like when you go through this, you have a short list for play of the year, and you're like, okay, well, worst case scenario, this person's like a locked on first teamer, and like players like Anna and Reese and Chase were definitely like that, where it's like you kind of know how talented they are, and even if the player of the year stuff doesn't go their way, they're gonna be great first teamers, and so that's kind of how I felt. I think the first team this year on the girls side was really really great. There's just a lot of talent throughout the area. Um, and when it came time to decide the player of the year, I think a player with Lily's stats, yeah, and just the role she kind of played on that team as well, as a senior, um, playing in the midfield as well, obviously a little bit more advanced, and she had a lot of freedom to go forward and get those goals and assists. Um, but her leading her team to a state title and just the season that Independence had, that definitely did make it a slightly easier decision than on the boys' side for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's hard to argue with that. Um, so when you look at that team, um, where was it pretty easy to pick your first team? I mean, did the team kind of pick itself, or did you really have to like the bottom part of the list? Were there some second teamers that very easily could have been on the first team?
I think the cutoff between the first team and second team is always hard, just because sometimes you look at your second team and like, oh, this is a great team. Like
Yeah.
this team is, I feel like just as good about the second team as the first team. And honestly, I think this year, the second team was very very talented. And just at a certain point, you have to pick the best 11 or the most impactful 11 players, the 11 players who had the best season in your eyes, or and just played the biggest role in winning. And I think. That was just kind of the case with the 11 this year, but I think it's always kind of tough in every sport with that with those lines, just those lines, especially between the second team and honorable mention and first team and second team. It's never super super easy just because of the amount of talented players in the area in really every sport. But I did feel really good just about the teams this year, just from the perspective of there's a lot of talented players kind of throughout the area. So when you go through the first team, I think it's especially on the girls' side. It makes a lot of sense at least.
Yeah. Well, the girls' team was much more senior laden than it was last year, but there are more underclassmen on the girls' side than the
Yeah.
boys' side. So I think next year the girls are still going to be strong,
Mhm.
especially Loudoun County.
Yeah, 100%. No, there's a lot like especially sophomores. There's a lot of talented sophomores in the area. And then yeah, underclassmen as a whole will be exciting to see everyone
Yeah.
back hopefully.
So, so Nikki, the coach of the year for the girls must have been a tough decision because both the coaches in the 4 and 5 uh, won the state championship, Loudoun County and Coach Hanover at Independence, and also, obviously, Coach Springer and Coach Hannah Davis did a great job as always, amongst others. How'd you decide on Coach of the Year for the girls?
Yeah, I think just Chelsea kind of coming in last year at Loudoun County and then just being able to embed so many freshmen, so many young players, not being afraid to give them a role. And just kind of also, you don't want to take credit away from the players for also playing a part in that, but the coach also, has to create an environment where players are willing to, be accepting of new players coming in and I think just the role she played and the role just what that team was kind of able to accomplish by kind of seamlessly incorporating those new players and obviously having the talent to go all the way. They just kind of did the entire process right. And ran the table. That the only blemish on that record is a tie against a really talented Woodgrove team who they had to play 4 other times throughout the season with how the district and region and stuff is considered. And obviously Woodgrove had such a great season. They got to the state final as well, and that was a really close game too. But no, just what Chelsea was able to accomplish and what that team was honestly able to accomplish with getting their best players time on the field, kind of seamlessly incorporating those new faces and it not really detracting from the talent they had. And the record and what they accomplished kind of showed that I think it was a great choice. There were a lot, like you mentioned, there were a lot of great coaches locally who were definitely deserving. But no, Chelsea was definitely someone who ended up at the top of my list.
All right, well, look, I want to go through my Nova Soccer Source Players of the Year, and
Mhm.
I'll take any comment that you may have as well. So, my underrated Player of the Year, and I just, I just pick players I want to award, and I don't necessarily have, um, I don't have to give awards for every, for boys and girls for every category, or I don't give, last year I gave a goalkeeper award. This year was tougher because it was hard for me to last year. The Lake Braddock goalie to me was so much better than the rest. It was easy for me. He's God, I'm freezing on his name now, but he's playing at Mary Washington.
Mhm.
Um, but it was hard for me to do that this year. But anyway, my underrated player was Angel Romero from Herndon, and it's funny about Angel. Angel's a great player. He plays center mid. Herndon plays five straight across in the back, and sometimes the wingbacks get into the offense, but oftentimes their midfielders have to do a lot of running because their
Mhm.
five in the back are standing right next to each other, and their midfielders have to run a lot. Angel covered an unbelievable amount of ground, unbelievable delivery on set pieces. He plays simple, really, really good player that no one ever notices, but he's really good. But not only it's just so funny about that team. There's so many other underrated players on the team. You got Liche Rodriguez, another midfielder. We've already talked about the strikers. You got Brian Leva on the right back. You got Andrew Tunley on the left back. You have Sully. I forgot Sully's name. He plays one of the. They have Bilal Hawa as one of the midfielders comes off the bench. Eric Marinko is a tremendous player. They have so many players that are underrated. So I just figured I'd take one of their underrated players and just made him my underrated, and that was Angel Romero. What'd you think about that pick?
Yeah, yeah, he was definitely someone on my radar for all Mets. I don't think he ended up making it, unfortunately. But like, I love highlighting guys, especially like you mentioned, midfielders, maybe guys that play more of the six or an eight, where they have to do a lot of running, defending wise. And yeah, that Herndon team just had like I think Brennan Morrow, their center back, was an
Another good
honorable
one.
mention for me. Honestly, their sophomore goalkeeper,
Oh, I
Zen
forgot to him. Yes,
like even him like played such a big role in that state title run. It does get hard when you especially on the title winning teams like you realize like oh you need a lot of players like this to play well and when it comes to time to honor them at the end of the season it's hard to only pick a couple. But no, I think that's a great pick, and I like the underrated player of the year award. That's a great idea.
Well, thank you. And if I had to have a goalkeeper award, it would have gone to Zen Patton. But it was hard for me because the McLean keeper,
Mhm.
he was a great keeper, but he didn't get much action back there all year. It's so hard to judge keepers.
Yeah, it is.
So the Hernan keeper, he came up so big in the postseason. They wouldn't have won the state title without him. Made the save in the semifinals that kept him in the match. So that's a great call as well. So I gave my clutch player of the year to Bruce Gonzalez from Wakefield. Bruce was a 4-year starter at Wakefield. The guy just made so many plays throughout his career. He could score from the midfield. He's such a great player. Uh, he's automatic from the stripe, from the penalty spot. And there's a lot of great clutch players around, but Bruce is one that just I love the way his teammates talk about him. Like, well, we know him when the ball's at his feet, it's good. So that to me was a pretty easy one. What'd you think about that one?
Yeah, that was a good one. Obviously, I think he was honorable mention
Yeah.
alongside Ryan, and then obviously Ricky is a first teamer as well. But no, I think it was fitting that Wakefield player got it as well, just with the amount of shootouts they were in the postseason. Makes a lot of sense, and that was a great pick.
Oh, well, thank you. So then for my players of the year for the boys, again, I'm just 6C, 6D. It was 0-2, and this was tough. I mean, before I did it, I acknowledged the previous winners from last year. And
Mhm.
Joe Margita is an amazing player, had a great career, another great year. Anna Chow, same thing. They were my players of the year, and they were in contention for athlete of the year last year. So I'm not going to say I took them out of consideration, but I did want to take the opportunity to give others some exposure. But the fact of the matter is, and you mentioned this earlier, O2 had two of the go-ahead goals in the state tournament. In the game against West Potomac, he had the header that put them up 1-0. In the state final, he had the 15-yard or 18-yard header that put him up that really kind of broke the camel's back.
Yeah.
He had some big penalty conversions and shootouts. And also in terms of his 4-year commitment to the team and everything he's done for the year, I felt like to me that had to be. And then on the girls' side, Reese Montgomery, and Reese did not play high school her last 2 years, even though she played with her sister her freshman year and helped them win the state. But Reese just had so many game-winning goals and assists. Stats are great, great player. It would be hard to compare apples and oranges with her and Lily because Lily's stats were just ridiculous. So I had the good fortune not to have to worry about that. And it was to me it was Reese and Anna that I had to really really focus in on. Anyway, how did you feel about those two picks?
Yeah, no, I agree with both of those, and especially like picking between those two players. Honestly, in both scenarios, I was kind of in the same boat, but just having to, on the boys' side also have John, and on the girls' side also have Lily to consider as well. But I think those in terms of like it being like Joe and O2 were definitely like probably second or third in terms of consideration for player of the year, and like I mentioned, like sometimes you just have players who are like, okay, those are easy first teamers. Like those were all easy first teamers for me. So no, I like the thought process, and especially in your case, like it was nice that both of Anna and Joe got honored last year, and you get to honor O2, who obviously played such a big role in them winning a state title this year, and Reese just with the just with how much he contributed to that Yorktown team and getting them all the way to state semifinal, and they just ran into that deep run team that was pretty incredible, unfortunately, but no, they were all locked on first teamers for me, and I think that was a great process, for they were definitely deserved players of the year for 60 and 60.
Yeah, well, thanks. Well, now we'll go to my coaches of the year, and um, I'm not going to say this was that tough for me because I'm heavily influenced by how far they got.
Hmm.
And for the coach of the year, obviously, Coach Karras Keough from Wakefield had to be in consideration for what he did for Wakefield to get them as far as they did. Coach Jennings from Robinson, like Coach Karras Keough, did an amazing job
Mhm.
Won those games. Their teams was so well coached in terms of tactics, in terms of shuffling around. I mean, no, I don't think anyone's a better tactician than Coach Jennings. But Coach Steffi, they had so many close games, and I mean, they could have lost so many times. It was over, and he found a way. I mean, very defensive lineup, hit you on the counterattack, just impossible to score on at the end of the year. Great on set pieces defensively. All the things you look at for a well-coached team, they kind of check all the boxes. Great guy, great inspirational guy. He has a newborn. He's out there coaching. Um, Steffi, great job for you. Probably coach's wife of the year. Don't want to slight anybody else out there, but with the newborn, allowing him to coach was great. So I had Coach Steffi on the men's side, and then on the girls on the boys side. On the girls side, Coach Springer from South County.
Mhm.
Just the fact that he got the job 2 weeks before, inherited the job from Coach Pannoni, who done an amazing job, won a state title herself. And I mean, you could tell he's a wily tactician, that guy. And to be able to convince the girls to all come out and look, we're going to be okay. We're going to do this. They lost a lot of players at graduation. Would be one of the best players on the team. Had an ACL injury this year.
Mhm.
I think she's only a junior, so hopefully we'll see her next year. Um, but Coach Springer, I kind of let the teams pick the coach for me. So how'd you feel about those selections for 6C and 6D?
Yeah, yeah. And like I mentioned earlier, they were definitely both in consideration for All Met Coach of the Year. But yeah, I liked what you said about Jordan and that Herndon team, and I think I touched on it earlier, but especially them just overcoming that kind of up and down start. They graduated so many players. Obviously had I'm gonna blank on his name. He went to JMU early.
Oh, Lucho.
Yes,
Lucho,
yes,
yeah.
yeah. So
Fuentes. Lucho
yeah,
Fuentes.
Fuentes, yeah. I don't know if there was that like I don't know if they thought they might have him back, but losing so many seniors and then also just on top of that losing a junior who obviously played such a big role in getting them to a state semifinal last year. To come back and have a bit of a rough start and just being able to coach your team through that obviously finish the way they did was really impressive. So no, definitely a great pick. And then yeah, on the girls' side, yeah, just the entire situation at South County and just how Daryl was able to take over that team, like you mentioned. Um, you know, convince everyone to come back or just get everyone on board really, and just the run that they had, 14 straight wins heading into the state final, and only narrowly losing to that really talented deep run team. It was definitely really impressive. So definitely both deserve winners.
Yeah. And I will have a few more uh, awards during the summer as they occur to me. So look, Nikki, great season. Thanks for all you do. I thought you did a tremendous job. What are you up to this summer, and what are you going to be covering this fall?
Yeah, so right now just prepping for the fall, which as of right now will be Virginia high school football and girls soccer again, which is obviously in the fall it's only Maryland and DC. Also some of the Northern Virginia
All
privates
the
are
six will come. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
But no, that's the plan as of right now. So right now, just kind of getting prepped for that. Had a little bit of time off, which was nice after how crazy championship season always is. But no, looking forward to just relaxing, kind of reloading, and yeah, getting back ready for that.
Yeah. Last question. What do you think of the St. James football team this year? How do you think they're going to do in their first season?
It'll be interesting. I haven't seen. I need to like. I don't know if they have a roster up somewhere. I need to figure out like just like who is actually on the team and who they're actually able to acquire. Yeah, it'll be interesting. We I don't know what I know they have like an independent schedule, I believe. I don't know what's going on with that because we only cover teams that are in Virginia that are approved by a Visa or the Independent Schools Association.
Oh, so they won't be in consideration for top.
So I don't.
Yeah.
I think there's still conversations about that. We're not sure if they'll be like in our rankings every week. Now we'll still have a story on it probably heading into the year, regardless, just because of obviously how big of a thing that is, and just like the quality of kids going there and everything. So it's not like we won't write about them at all, but they might not be in our rankings or in consideration for all Met. But that's still to be decided because I just don't know where things are at with all that. So honestly, not sure yet. If we do that, I think that'll be, if they are, visa approved, I think they'll be in on our private beat technically, but there'll probably still be like a Northern Virginia public story there, in terms of like kids potentially transferring out to go there. But no, it'll definitely be interesting, having a new potential power in the area.
Is that like Highland last year? They weren't really in the rankings
Yeah,
this year.
Highland technically is outside our coverage area. So yeah, we never covered it. Now we did a story on Nate, obviously. Um I think right after the season ended, or obviously, him being initially from Colgan, being from Manassas, we still wanted to cover him, but that's why he wasn't eligible for like awards and stuff, or they weren't in the rankings all year.
That's
They're
interesting.
outside. We have like a directory with like these schools we cover, but it is like very old and not very well organized. We're actually revamping that right now, so hopefully there'll be a lot of improvements, and it'll be like better communicated, like who we actually cover and like what the area is and what the like qualifications are, because like on the Maryland side it's like we don't cover like the Mount Zion prep like first basketball team, which like plays a national schedule because it's an academy, but they also have just like a high school team that's still really really good that we do cover. So there are some like quirks in terms of stuff like that, but
Yeah.
no, looking forward to the fall. Should be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, last question, Nikki. When the season's over, do you miss the kids? Like for me, I get to know the kids in soccer. I don't get to know them in basketball, but in soccer, the kids message me, Mr. Brown, did you see that shot? They're interactive. In basketball, it's not quite like that. So when the season's over, I do miss it. I miss all the interaction. I miss the drama. I mean, this year was just great with the red cards and the McLean kids are so much fun. I'll miss those guys. But what about you? Do you miss them after the season's over?
Yeah, no, the season, especially this year, like soccer, and in the spring, getting to focus solely on soccer, which obviously I played growing up. Was considering playing in college and just decided to go a different route, which kind of led me here. But it was a lot of fun, and it's definitely something where, when I barely sleep for the like the 48 hours after state finals and getting all Mets, the rest of the week I'm like I am happy that it's over, and I'll like, well, I got to go on vacation, which was nice, and just kind of relax for a couple weeks. But now I'm back at the point where I'm like, all right, I'm ready. What's the next thing? So, hopefully I'll already start putting in the work for fall stuff, and kind of getting back on the horse, because it was this season especially was a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it makes sense. So, so Nikki, man, this has been great. I hope you enjoy your summer, get some rest, and then I can't wait the football season. I guess they'll be practicing in a month from now. We'll
Yeah.
start. So we'll be right back in it, and we'll have some scrimmages to talk about. So I really appreciate you taking your time and amazing job covering the boys and the girls, and I look forward to football.
100%. Yeah, it was great seeing you throughout the year, and thanks for having me on, Julian.
Yeah, man. We'll talk soon, Nikki.